And I bring up those three individuals with reason because I got to talk about that opening for Monday Night Raw. We opened the show with CM Punk. He talked about the War Games matchup, alluded to the favor that he has in place with Paul Heyman. And first of all, I must say, there's a lot of speculation. There's a lot of thoughts and feelings about what that favor is. But at this point in time, I don't think there is a favor. Some people are so consumed. They're so obsessed with what is the favor. CM Punk said it at the Survivor Series following the victory in War Games. He told Paul Heyman, I'm going to let you know when I need that favor. Now, of course, that's not verbatim. That's not word for word. But people have become so consumed with finding out what is this favor. There is no favor. Not yet. Punk has it in the back pocket so that whenever the opportune time presents itself, then and only then will Phil Brooks, aka CM Punk, be able to cash in like he cashed in Money in the Bank, not on one occasion but two. Now, there might be some speculation, there might be some prediction as to what the favor could entail, but I certainly think in this point in time, no one knows. Maybe Punk doesn't even know. He might have an idea, but I don't think it's set in stone. So for a guy like Roman Reigns to be concerned with the wise man and asking what is the favor, I don't think there's a favor yet. I don't think so. I'm of the mindset where that will be revealed at a later date. Will it be a championship opportunity? I don't think so. Paul Heyman doesn't have that kind of stroke. Now, if Roman Reigns were to win the title, miraculously, after only losing it this past April at WrestleMania 40, if he were to regain the title, perhaps that's an opportunity that Punk could cash in on the favor and say, I want next. Perhaps. Maybe it's some kind of immunity from the bloodline or the OG bloodline, some kind of attack. Maybe. Maybe it's for the counsel of a certain wise man in Paul Heyman. But like I said, this is all pure speculation. It's just ideas that we're throwing at the wall and seeing what sticks. If you ask me, championship opportunity. If Roman Reigns, or anyone for that matter within the bloodline, but certainly Roman Reigns being the big dog, that is who I think CM Punk would want to take on. But I digress. We talk about that opening segment. Seth Rollins comes out. He interrupts CM Punk in his whole soliloquy regarding possible championship aspirations and winning the Royal Rumble this upcoming February in Indianapolis. He interrupts this promo, this segment by the Second City, saying, and you can see CM Punk's face said it all. He's fed up. He doesn't want to deal with Seth Rollins. And I think he put it best in this promo. Of course, Seth Rollins wants to fight CM Punk. We've known this for quite some time. He referred to CM Punk as a cancer to a locker room. And this is no secret. A lot of people have their own reservations regarding Punk. I, for one, am a fan. But there's others who deem him too controversial, a little too hot to handle. And I think CM Punk himself would acknowledge that. But the fact is, Rollins says he should have taken Punk out the day he returned at Survivor Series in Chicago one night in 2023. But what I really took away from this is Punk he's over. He's over Seth Rollins. There's no point to fighting him, he said. He alluded to the fact that Seth Rollins had lost his World Heavyweight Championship at WrestleMania 40. So what's so enticing about facing Seth Rollins? He talks about how Seth has had Punk on his mind for quite some time, but that Punk, quite frankly, doesn't really think about Seth Rollins. He's not of his concern. And to hear that from CM Punk, if I'm Seth Rollins, I'm feeling a type of way. You spent so much time away from the company that Seth Rollins tried to rebuild back up, only to come back, pick a fight with Seth Rollins, verbally, of course, intervene in a world championship opportunity, costing Drew McIntyre his title. And now you're saying you don't want any beef with me. Maybe not necessarily not any beef, but he doesn't deem it necessary. He doesn't care enough to fight Seth Rollins after what they went through at SummerSlam this past August. I look at that and I'm all in. I need to see Seth Rollins versus CM Punk. This is one of those matchups that I am highly anticipating. Not just because of the in ring prospect of seeing two of the very best that the WWE has, seeing them square off in a squared circle, but on top of that, we're talking about layers of storytelling. We're talking about similarities in personalities. Look at the way these two came up through the indies, coming to WWE, building up the ranks of the main event scene, of course, a la the Money in the Bank briefcase, winning world championships. And on top of that, the parallels. CM Punk is a guy who didn't have a certain backing of an authority. Rather than that, he actually was very combative with the authority. Seth Rollins was placed in position to be the next guy. He was flanked by people like Triple H, Stephanie McMahon. Whereas a guy like CM Punk had to scratch and claw just to stay on the main roster. He made a career of fighting off guys like Triple H, like a John Laurinaitis. So to see the parallels of those two climbing the ranks, being where they are now, and a guy like Seth Rollins, who very much is a company guy, he's represented WWE in a positive light. But again, taking into consideration the position that he was placed in, it makes perfect sense why he would be a company guy, why he would toe the company line. And then a guy like CM Punk, who's very, very much so anti-establishment, leaving the company, leaving the business that apparently he gave his life to, essentially. CM Punk spent years on the indie scene, years in OVW, WWE, ECW, building it back up. And he left because of the way that he was treated in the WWE and the lack of respect that he felt from management. He left only to come back, and now we circle all the way back here. Seth Rollins and CM Punk, that's on the docket. If that's not a matchup that you want to see, I don't know what to tell you. Because there's so much story there. And there's so much to explore on screen, off screen, in the ring, backstage segment. This is one of those money matchups. People would pay to see this matchup, and we still have a lot of time left between now and Allegiant Stadium for WrestleMania 41, because I have no doubt in my mind this is the match that will be there. It might even be a main event for night one, potentially. Of course, it's a little too early to predict that. But I certainly think that because at WrestleMania 40, it was heavily discussed that CM Punk's first WrestleMania in years would be against the Visionary, the Revolutionary, Seth freaking Rollins. And of course, the injury that he would sustain sidelined him for months on end, missing WrestleMania 40, albeit he was a part of it still, through a role of a commentator, and again, interfering in the post-match shenanigans there with Drew McIntyre that helped set up their feud. But why wouldn't the WWE try to attempt it one more time for WrestleMania 41? I don't see why not. Everything is pointing in that direction. And as I mentioned, we still have a few months to build this feud up. So if you're like me and you are amped to see Rollins and Punk, imagine what it's going to be like in 2 months' time. Because by the time we get to Netflix, a lot of things might change between these two. A lot of bad blood could be boiling over between two of the very best. That wasn't the only individual that was involved in that segment. Of course, Punk leaving the ring because he had a scuffle with Seth Rollins that was interrupted by Jey Uso and Sami Zayn, teammates of CM Punk for the War Games matchup. And in that scuffle, Seth Rollins basically throwing insults at Jey Uso, telling him to go back to Roman Reigns because apparently he likes teaming back up with him. And Sami Zayn, real quick to the defense of main event Jey Uso, says, "You're not going to talk to Jey like that." And that's one thing I really admired. Sammy and Jay had a tumultuous relationship within the bloodline all the way back in 2022. And to see the progress, the growth between the two, and the level of respect, loyalty that these two have for one another, you love to see it. That's why they refer to Sami Zayn as Sami Uso. He is his brother's keeper. But Sami Zayn wasn't going to allow Seth Rollins to verbally disrespect Jey Uso, who's made quite a name for himself in the last year. I think it's very important to point out that Sami Zayn isn't just defending Jey Uso because they're on the same team of the bloodline, but it's that level of respect that a guy like Jey Uso has amassed over the course of the last year, being a solo star on Monday Night Raw. He won the Intercontinental Championship recently, had World Championship opportunities, for example, at Backlash against Damian Priest. He's gotten over as one of the hottest baby faces in the company. Every time main event Jey Uso is in your city, there's people yeeting all over the place. You see the crowd chanting yeet, you see them doing the hand movements and enjoying and vibing to the entrance music of Jey Uso. He's earned his spot in the main event scene. And Sami Zayn wasn't going to allow that disrespect to head his way. He talked to Seth Rollins. He flat out held him accountable. He says, you talk about not liking Roman Reigns, having this beef with Roman Reigns, when in fact, you could argue Seth Rollins is directly responsible for the monster that Roman Reigns turned into. And Seth Rollins, he didn't deny it. He acknowledged it. He says, yes, 10 years ago, when Seth Rollins swung that steel chair in the back of Roman Reigns, it created a domino effect that is still being felt to this day. Cross promotions even. Because you can make the argument with a guy like Jon Moxley, who's running roughshod in All Elite Wrestling. He was there too in the Shield. It has become one of the more influential, significant, and historic moments in pro wrestling history, just because of the ripple effect that it has had on the industry. Seth Rollins, he's no saint. He owns it. He says, yeah, swinging the chair, again, in the back of Roman Reigns, set in motion what we have to deal with now. It is the reason why one certain tribal chief has developed trust issues, why he's become so maniacal when it comes to this power-hungry struggle that he has within the WWE, asserting his dominance across the land and refusing to let it go. Roman Reigns will not be made fool of again. He will not be betrayed. But then again, it happened at the Royal Rumble in 2023, because Seth Rollins, you see, he would point the finger back at Sami Zayn, saying, you want to judge me. You want to villainize me for stabbing him in the back with a steel chair, when in fact, Sami, you did the very same thing. And he's got a point. And that's why I think this segment is quite possibly one of, if not the best segments that we have seen in the WWE, certainly in the year 2024, because it was heavy on so much story. We started the night with CM Punk and his aspirations, what he's been through, where he wants to go. We then transferred over to his feud with Seth Rollins, what they've been through, what they could go through. Then we introduced Jay and Sammy, two side pieces in this story between Punk versus Rollins, and then we parlay it into Sami Zayn versus Seth Rollins, calling each other out, two of the top baby faces the WWE has had in the last couple of years. And I love it. I love it because I'm walking into this episode of Monday Night Raw. I'm not expecting Sami Zayn versus Seth Rollins in the main event, but man, what a turnout. What a payoff to this segment. These two now at each other's throats because of the allegiance to Roman Reigns. One, of course, was like a brother in the Shield. The other is like a brother now in the Bloodline, both pointing fingers at one another given the certain circumstance of the WWE right now. And of course, this would lead to the matchup. This would lead to the main event. And of course, we already talked about Drew McIntyre's participation in the storyline. And where does that lead Drew McIntyre? Is he going to begin a feud with Sami Zayn? It is possible. Will it then lead to something with Jey Uso? Because he already attacked Jey. He and Jey Uso have a history. As I mentioned last year, he had trust issues. He took out Jey Uso, Drew McIntyre reintroducing himself into the very same mess that I don't think he wanted to be a part of. But because of this hyperfixation on the bloodline and reestablishing who is the stronger of the two bloodlines, Drew McIntyre found in the middle, trying to make peace, I think, with himself. Trying to do what he could not have done 2 years ago at Clash at the Castle when he unsuccessfully challenged for the Universal title. He wants to make peace with himself by eliminating every participating party in this bloodline saga. And Drew McIntyre, I certainly think, will be a huge impact player to keep an eye on in the next year. His work in the CM Punk feud should be rewarded. He, along with Punk, again, delivered one of, if not the best, feud in the WWE and potentially in pro wrestling. Why wouldn't you want to reward a guy like that? Championship opportunities, championship aspirations. Push this guy to the moon. He is doing the best work of his career, and I'm all for it.